And thank you to both the witnesses for being here today. My question through you, Chair, to Mr. Vardy. Mr. Vardy, first of all, I'm pleased that you're here today to be able to bring to us your wealth of experience and knowledge. I found it interesting, your point that you made around the priority was given to year-round jobs over conservation. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, I think that's the key in terms of management, trying to find a way to remove the politics from the management of the fishery, because this is the volatility, the ups and downs, the instability of the fishing industry is largely attributable to the fact that there's been too many decisions taken without enough knowledge and without enough weight assigned to the science and the conservation, and also to the various environmental factors. Those are very important as well. There's not just one indicator of success like the biomass. There's issues with recruitment, there's water temperature, there's seals, a whole host of factors. And so inherently there's a lot of need for good science, but also good input from harvesters and the people that are out on the water. So I think that some kind of a joint management process would be extremely beneficial in terms of not only separating out the politics, but making the politics more transparent and making the science more transparent. That's one of the big problems we've got right now, is that there's ministerial discretion, and often it's not clear what the factors are that influence ministers' decisions. And so we need to have more transparency and more public input and more. This is an industry where the regulator quite often is captured by the industry. The term regulatory capture, I think, applies to many industries, and not the least in the case of the fishing industry. And so we need something to do to try to keep the industry in its place and keep everybody in their place, and the public should be in its place as well. I think the public needs a seat at the table. And my biggest concern right now is the fact that the civic society is excluded from much of this process.
Thank you, Mr. Vardy. You answered many of my other questions, so that was good, all in that one question. One thing that you were talking about is around the Joint Management Fisheries Board, around the importance of independent science, and I was reflecting on the fact that when my colleague, Mr. Small, was asking the question around moving, if you felt that the LRP was part of a political plan, I was reflecting on that because we have taken extensive time as a committee to study science and how our, the impacts of science not being independent on our the management decisions. And so it was interesting to me to think that we wouldn't be posing questions like that if we had a sound management plan that included robust, independent science. And so I'm wondering if you could, I guess, to get to my main question, the other witness that was here today, Mr. Bonnell, had mentioned that Iceland and Norway have robust fisheries management practices, and that he felt that Canada had comparable management plans. Now, I hope I'm not poorly articulating what it was that he said, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. Does Canada, in your opinion, have that same independent science, the same robust management plans, science-based management plans that we require?
If we would look at international best practice, I would think we probably don't. I'm inclined to think we don't. I think that Iceland and Norway probably have a better process. But when it comes to this, you mentioned the limit reference point as to what extent was that shaped out of a political process or a scientific process. Again, I come back to the question of transparency, because there was a question about, has this fisheries model, the new DFO model, been verified and validated? And I've asked people, I've asked scientists and others to tell me, did this go through the proper process? What I was told was that the DFO science invited people. There were specific people who were asked to come. With some of them they shared the data. In other cases they didn't. Most of the people attending the forum were by invitation. It wasn't open. So what I conclude, was this an open process that led from the old LRP to the new one? I would think it's not really transparent as it should have been, because I think there's such a quantum change. When I was Deputy Minister of Fisheries, we looked at essentially we needed to have 1 million tons of spawning biomass in the water before we could have a productive fishery. And now we're down somewhere between 300 and 400,000 tons. And so the quantum change, the reduction in the LRP, the goalpost has changed to a large extent here, and much more than the stock. The stock has not, some can argue that the stock has increased, and some of the previous witnesses spoke about that, the 2024 surveys, that the 2024 surveys are very encouraging. But, one swallow doesn't make a spring. It takes more than one survey before you can reach definitive conclusions about the health of a stock. So I think that the limit, my fear is that the limit reference point was changed without proper consultation, without the kind of open civic engagement that's needed to have credibility for science. And I think that that's my sense is that when you come back to the Canadian question of Canada, where do we stand? I'm not so sure.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. We'll